Why is Jungkook always silent when asked about his family? Why did his eyes suddenly turn blank when his father's name was called? Is it true that BTS's Golden Magne has a deep wound that has never been revealed? Now, after years of silence, Jungkook has finally opened up. But not on stage, not through song, rather than through the heartbreaking silence in the middle of a military camp. A shocking confession that left all the army speechless. Was Jungkook actually sacrificed by his own family? Who would have thought that, behind the sparkling lights and the cheering of millions of fans, there is a side of Jungkook's life that has never been touched by cameras, never discussed in interviews, never even appeared in the loving lyrics that he sings so sincerely. One side that has been locked up so tightly that none of us know, the family. The question, which had only been whispered among the fans, now resonated loudly. Why does Jungkook always shy away when asked about his family? Why is it that not a single moment of his family is seen in the personal documentation, even during big moments like his debut anniversary, farewell concert, or when he went into the army? Where was his family when the world embraced him? And the most surprising question, is it true that he was so far removed from his own family? This issue is not new. However, no one dared to raise it directly, all as if afraid to touch something too fragile. But now, a piece of truth began to gape. A gap that finally opens when Jungkook decides to get away from the world. It was not for nothing that Jungkook suddenly disappeared from the media spotlight before entering the military. He refused all forms of coverage, did not want to hold a press conference, even refused to meet with his old colleagues. For those who have known him for a long time, this attitude is not attention-seeking or solely due to stress. This is an alarm. Alarm that there is a wound too deep to leave open. A former HYB staffer, who did not want to be named, said Jungkook was seen crying alone in the training room 2 weeks before his departure for the army. When asked what happened, the only answer he gave was, "They never considered me their son." Who are they? Why do those words sound like a desperate statement from a child who has given up looking for a place in his family? It's not just that. Jungkook reportedly refused family visits when military training began. One of his campmates, known as a senior in the unit where Jungkook was stationed, recalled that Jungkook avoided talking about his personal background. Even when his platoon mates mentioned how lucky they were to have parents who were proud of them, Jungkook just looked down and said quietly, "Proud. Sometimes the word is just an illusion." Is it true that Jungkook's family put him aside? Is it true that he is not the proud son that we think he fought to make them proud? The news spread that since childhood, Jungkook grew up under heavy family pressure. He was not the child I expected from the beginning. More attention is paid to his brother, and Jungkook is often a quiet child who never gets a special place in his own home. Not many people know that behind his cheerful laughter on stage, there is a soul trained to swallow disappointment since childhood. Jungkook never shared a moment with his father, even during emotional moments like BTS's farewell concert before enlistment. Unlike other members such as Jin, J-Hope, and even Taeil, who are often seen showing their affection towards family, Jungkook seems to be hiding something. Or maybe not hidden, but indeed there are never moments worth sharing. And now, unexpectedly, in a closed-door discussion session in the military attended only by the counseling officer and a few nearby soldiers, Jungkook finally said something that made the room quiet. "I want to love them, but what if I'm always the last thing they think of? Even when I hit rock bottom, they cared more about my reputation than my pain." That sentence, only 27 words, is enough to break the heart of anyone who hears it. Jungkook, the idol who always appears as a person full of love, turns out to be holding a wound because of the love that never returns to him from the person who should love him the most. The question is no longer, why does Jungkook always shy away when asked about his family? But what really happened between Jungkook and his father that he was so hurt? An internal source from one of the parties close to the management revealed that Jungkook and his father's relationship had long deteriorated. His father said he never supported Jungkook's choice to become a singer. Even when Jungkook made his debut with BTS, the support didn't come in the form of hugs or compliments, but rather pressure to succeed so as not to embarrass the family. From then on, Jungkook lived in the shadow of demands, not affection, Jungkook's decision to enlist in the military was not solely out of obligation to the state.
It was an escape.
Escape from old wounds that continue to gape.
He needs time.
He needs space to ask himself, if I am not loved for who I am, then who am I to them? Even more horrifying is the fact that until now, there has not been a single official statement from the Jungkook family. There is no clarification, no defense.
No apologies.
Just silence. A silence that holds more questions than answers. Now, armies around the world are starting to ask, have we been so focused on his idol that we have forgotten that he is also a child who may be looking for a hug that he never got? Is this the reason Jungkook writes songs about loss, longing, and wounds so deeply? Is every word a silent cry to his family? And what will happen after this? Will Jungkook return with a calmer heart? Or will it remain a part of him forever? One thing is certain. Behind his sweet smile and charismatic look, Jungkook is a human being who is trying to make peace with the past. And for the first time, he lets us see just how deep the wounds he has been covering with stage searchlights are. We are still waiting for clarification from the family. But maybe, this time, it's not the clarification we need. Maybe what Jungkook really needs isn't a defense, but rather the courage to say, I am enough, even without you. However, what is most heartbreaking of all is how Jungkook is trying to remain strong in front of the world. He always appeared with a smile. He still greets his fans with love, writes sweet letters to ARMY in the midst of his busy life, and never misses a birthday greeting or thanks to anyone who supports him. But his father's name was never mentioned.
Why?
Is it because the pain is too deep? Or because of a childhood trauma that never recovered? Some longtime fans even tried to retrace digital traces of Jungkook's past. They found that since the debut, the only family member who was occasionally referred to was the mother. And even then, without further clarity, there was never a story about an affectionate childhood. There has never been a story about her father taking her to vocal lessons or supporting her when she decided to go to Seoul to pursue her idol dream. This is where the wounds begin to show. In a recent interview, Jungkook was asked, "What do you miss most about being away from home?" He smiled and said, "It's a warm morning."
Not a word about family.
Not one about father, mother, or brother. Maybe we didn't take it seriously then. But now, in the context of the revealed reality, the answer sounds like a lonely cry that no one has ever understood. And now, the ARMY is left wondering, have we only seen Jungkook's side of the stage, but ignored the wounds behind the scenes? Are we too busy worshiping his performance to forget that he also needs space to cry? There is one moment that cannot be forgotten. At BTS, last concert before their hiatus for the military, the camera captured Jungkook's expression as all the members expressed gratitude to their families. He stared at the stage blankly. He smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Even when it was his turn to speak, he only thanked the members and the ARMY. Not to the family. Not to dad, not to mom. Just quiet. Some fan psychologists active in the ARMY community tried to analyze Jungkook's gestures and emotional responses over the years. They concluded that there were indications of neglect trauma that may have been carried over from childhood. This trauma often comes in the form of overachieving, an exaggerated attempt to prove one's self-worthy of love. And isn't that what we've been seeing from Jungkook? He never stopped working hard. He was always the first to arrive and the last to go home in training. He refused to rest even though he was injured. He kept writing songs, kept creating, kept performing, as if never satisfied. Is it all for the sake of proving itself valuable enough to people who have never even really seen it? And right now, in the silence of the military camp, Jungkook chose to be completely silent.
No social media applause.
There is no special appearance. He chose to calm down, away from anything that could remind him of the world that once silenced his deepest wounds, including his family, including the father. An internal military source revealed that Jungkook almost always spends time alone on weekends. While his colleagues called their parents, Jungkook sat at the back of the barracks, staring at the sky, writing something in the little book he always carried with him. Some who had peeked said the book contained lyrics, but also pieces of letters that were never sent. One of his pieces that colleagues of the unit managed to remember reads, "If I am your son, why should I ask for your attention?" If I were your blood, why would I feel like a guest in your life? If I were nobody, then let me be who I am without having to hurt myself just to be mean to you. The word's high. But does the world really know how deep the wound is? Or are we all just fixated on the perfect image of an idol, forgetting that behind every camera lens, there is a boy who was once abandoned? Have you ever wondered what it's like to live as Jungkook, loved by millions, but not knowing if that love ever comes from the person he needs most, and like an accidental omen? On his last birthday before enlisting in the military, Jungkook only posted one short sentence on BTS's official community platform. Today feels like a normal day. There are no emojis, no thanks,
No birthday cake.
and no greeting to anyone. For some, this may be just a tired expression. But for those who read deeper, the sentence felt like a silent scream that had been suppressed for so long. Now, many ARMY began to dig back pieces of the past that may have been missed. One of the most touching was the moment when Jungkook, still very young, ran after BTS's van in tears because the training was too strenuous. In their debut rehearsal documentation, a teenage Jungkook repeatedly said, "I have to be strong. I have to be strong." But to whom is he trying to prove his strength? To the world? To the coaches? Or to a father who has never been present to say, "I am proud of you"? And the world began to wonder, what if all the songs Jungkook had written all along were actually letters that never arrived? What if those emotional lyrics about loss, betrayal, and loneliness weren't musical fiction, but a mirror of the personal wounds he's been hiding? The song "Still With You," so beloved by the ARMY, now feels different when listened to again in this context. With a soft voice and longing lyrics, Jungkook sings as if talking to someone who's long gone. Or maybe, someone who never came. "I want to hold your hand. Go to the other side of the earth. I want to walk with you." The lyrics now resonate as an unfulfilled hope. Could it be that the you in the song is not a lover, not a fan, but the father figure she has always sought in the shadows? And as news of his family story spread, many in the ARMY recalled how Jungkook had always been more protective of the members. He is always the first to come when someone is crying. It hugs, soothes, even cries silently if someone is hurt. Is it because he knows how it hurts to be alone? Suga once said that Jungkook had a hard time opening up when BTS was formed. He's always smiling, but it's hard to know what he's really feeling. And now it all makes sense. Jungkook probably never learned how to cry in someone's arms. Maybe it's because he hasn't had that hug since he was a kid. Meanwhile, fans in the online community began voicing hope that HYBE and the military would give Jungkook more personal space. They don't ask for content. They are not demanding on appearance. They just want the idol they love to breathe freely. Because sometimes true love is letting go of demands and letting someone recover in their own way. Even Jin, who had just completed his military service, seemed to be giving signals of support. In a short interview after the welcoming ceremony, he was asked about who he would most like to meet from the BTS members. In a low voice, Jin simply replied, "Magne. I want to hug him." The statement made the hashtag #HugForJungkook instantly trending globally. It didn't take long before thousands of fans from different countries started sending virtual letters containing only one sentence, "You are enough," without having to prove anything. But behind all the love that began to flow, there was also concern. Will Jungkook survive? Will he return with a more peaceful version of himself, or stay out of the spotlight to save his own soul? Some say that this is a turning point. That this is not the end of Jungkook, but rather the beginning of a new John Jungkook. A young man who chooses to no longer live in the shadow of expectations, but to create his own path even if that path must be traveled alone. However, what would happen if his father suddenly reappeared? What would Jungkook say? Will he forgive? Or is the wound too deep to heal? And what if one day Jungkook writes a song about the father? Not as a regret, but as a farewell? Is the world ready to hear the story? A story that has been written with tears, not ink. Not all wounds have to heal in order for a person to be happy. Sometimes all it takes is someone to say, "I understand. You're not alone." And today, millions of ARMY around the world promise to be that voice.